Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Tech Talk. Here with us today we have Amit and myself. We are going to talk about GNSS. This might be a bit of an unfamiliar topic to a lot of you, but part of it is very familiar. GNSS stands for Global Navigation Satellite System, and a lot of you would probably be familiar with a subset of this topic, which is GPS, which we're going to talk a lot about in this topic. But yeah, the parent topic, the overall bigger idea is GNSS, and it is an interesting topic, very technical, and quite excited to talk about it today. Amit, thank you for coming up with this topic. I don't really know a lot, but I'm looking forward to learning from you today. So yeah, let's start talking about it. What's GNSS?
So Global Navigation Satellite System is GNSS, and but first of all, thank you so much for the introduction, Rinat. I wanted to touch base on this topic is because we are all familiar with GPS and we are all using it constantly in our daily lives for navigation, for checking which are the closest restaurants near us, etc., based on our location. So we are constantly using it. But do we really understand how the technology works and what are the implications and what are the other systems and why GNSS? What is GPS and what are the other satellite systems? So that's why I just wanted to touch base on this topic to get people familiarized with a type of technology that is quite ubiquitous. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know actually about it a lot.
Yeah, and when you talk about navigation system, I mean, we always come back to this about privacy and security and things like that. And GPS or GNSS would have a large part talking about how you're being tracked, right? That's a really important part of the topic itself. But yeah, I mean, there are so many sort of areas where GNSS or GPS can be explored into, and it's very interesting and complex topic because the technology behind it is so interesting, and it could date back to all the way back to Newton's theory of gravity, and from there, and how we found that that doesn't work, and Einstein's theory prevails because of the minute changes in calculations. So these are all very interesting, and hopefully you guys would enjoy this talk with us, and as we explore the topic further.
Yeah, so let me first like make it a bit clear that it has got nothing to do with privacy. The reason being, we are just receiving a signal on a radio device. That's it. It's just as simple as that. We are not sending anything out.
Oh,
So
right,
so
okay.
all the calculation is done on your phone, on your device actually.
Right, okay. So,
S-
but does Google not track your location? Does it not
Google
relate?
tracks the location, but the satellite, the system itself doesn't track it. You use a
Ah,
system.
yeah.
The phone itself will track your location, they'll track all the voice, they'll track all the search history. Yes, it does. But we are not talking about the phone, we are talking about the system itself. So
Right.
let's
Okay.
let's let's start from the beginning. Global Navigation Satellite System. Global, it means it covers the whole planet. Navigation means you are using some system to navigate around the planet to go from one place to another. Navigation means to go from one place to another, it over land, over sea, over mountains, etc. And the satellite system is basically you are using the satellite, and not a single satellite but a system of satellites, multiple satellites, 20, 30 satellites in that system, and together it's called a navigation satellites global navigation satellite system. And there are different countries who have made their own systems, and what we call them is a constellation. A constellation, from what we have read when we were young, is basically nothing but a group of stars. A group of stars together is called a constellation. Similarly, a group of satellites together can be called a constellation. Now if you look back, systems which were there before GPS came, we had maps, Someone had to draw the maps, and then we used to look at the sun, and then we used to decide where we are. But if it is the night, we used to look at the stars. We used to say this is the North Pole, sorry, the North Star, and based on the North Star, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you have a different star. So if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you have the Southern Star, and based on the star, you would be able to navigate. Okay, so that there is that constellation, there is this constellation, and based on where you are or what you can see, you can then maybe to a certain extent figure out where you are in the world or how far you are from where you started. So that was how we navigated. Okay, so we look at a tree, we look at the star, then we move, then we look at another tree, another star, etc., etc. And similarly, over the period of time, we looked at how the sun moves. So we have a sundial, so we know how what's the time of the day, etc. So looking at the stars, you could tell the time and you could also navigate. Similarly, with a GPS system, you are able to navigate as well as know where you are in the world and then figure out what time is it. Because based on the location, you can figure out what time is it on your at the particular location. So GPS was started by US and it is still operated by US. So US owns the satellite system. They launch the new satellites. Each satellite lasts for about 10 years, and once a satellite gets old, they renew it by sending a new satellite. Okay, in that constellation, there are about 24 to 30 satellites. Each satellite takes about 12 hours, or you can say they complete 2 rounds of planet Earth in 24 hours. Okay, so 2 rounds of planet Earth in 24 hours. So that's the satellite system. Okay, that is what the satellite is doing. Now, in order to control the satellite, you need a ground station. You send a signal, okay, steer here, stay in orbit. Okay, what's the time on your sat on the satellite? Okay, this is the time here on Earth. So can we just sync the time like we sync with atomic clocks or we sync with different servers? So we sync the time. We look at whether they are at the right orbit. Do we have to give them enough thrust so that they stay in orbit? Then is there any software maintenance needed, etc. So there is a ground system taking care of that, those satellite systems.
So sorry to interrupt. So GPS, as far as I know, it stands for Global Positioning System, right?
Yes, yes.
So a lot of the times what happens is whenever I hear an acronym, when I hear the full form, it kind of gives me a bit of sense. And so I thought that Global Positioning System is like a global solution by all the different countries, they all collaborated. But now you're saying GPS is just US. So how does this, I mean, what does global positioning system even mean? Like,
So basically, the system was launched by US. When it was launched by the US military for their purposes, and it was called Navstar. When it became public, when it was given out to the public, that's when it became actually GPS, Global Positioning System. Okay, but it is just one constellation maintained by a country. Okay, so those are satellites. Someone has to send the satellite. Remember that. Someone has to send the satellite. Someone has to maintain it on course. Then once the life of the satellite is over, they have to send another satellite, and someone has to send it on a rocket. Someone has to buy space on a rocket ship to launch those satellites. So someone has to do all that work. Now there is no collaboration right now. Even in International Space Station, which is majority US, it is still coordinated by other countries, but still it is ISS is all a US baby. It is still an international cooperation, but it's more of a US baby. So similarly, GPS is a US baby. So GPS is maintained by US and it was the first system. And now there are other systems in the world which can be used for navigation. Now, if you go to
so
GSM arena, go ahead. Yeah.
so when I am right now, we're both in UK, right? And we're getting our positions in Google Maps or wherever. We're using GPS. As far as I know, it was GPS, but is it not called GPS?
So, so
And when when I'm
because
roaming
GPS,
through another part of
yes.
the world, like Middle East, or am I using something else, which is called something else?
So yeah, again, so let's cover the basics first, then I'll explain. So we have one system, 30 satellites, around about 30 satellites. They take They complete two cycles around the planet, um, and uh, and the satellite is basically sending a radio signal. Why radio? Because radio can travel long distances. Wi-Fi doesn't travel outside our house, so you need a signal stronger than Wi-Fi. Maybe a radio signal, but FM or AM, you don't know, right? So there is basically a radio signal that's coming, and our smartphones are basically nothing but a radio device, right? We receive a signal from a cell phone tower. That's a radio signal. It could be maybe not at the radio frequency, but at some other frequencies. But it's still effectively electromagnetic wave that's coming to your phone. Let's say it's a radio signal because voice is there, etc. And we have to carry the voice over a long distance. Sometimes what happens is it's part of it is traveling digitally and the other part is analog, but most of it is still radio signal. Now this satellite is sending a signal, the phone is receiving it, and there is a ground station that's controlling the whole system. So there are three systems involved: the satellite, the ground station, and the receiver. The receiver could be a smartphone, it could be a smartwatch, it could be any GPS device. Okay, we call it a GPS device. Now, how does your phone know where you are? The satellite is not telling me where I am. I receive a signal. Okay, then I calculate where have I received the signal, how long has it taken. Then I receive another signal. Then based on that, I can say, okay, this signal is coming from this place and it has taken this much time. And then I take a third signal, so forth. So I take about three signals to identify my 3D space, where I am on a two-dimensional level without any altitude.
Yeah, so this is what I've heard about. Like you triangulate from three different cell phone towers that, then once you triangulate, you could kind of
Yes,
identify
yes.
where in a
But
2D
the cell
plane
phone
you are.
tower has a long range. So if you are inside the tower range, you can travel from your house to another house, maybe another two blocks. The range is quite good, right? But if you want pinpoint accuracy, like I'm here, not 3 blocks away, then I need to have a better triangulation system, right? Far better compared to a cell phone tower. So for that, and when satellite and when the smartwatch or smartphone is um, calculate the exact location, they don't create a circle or they don't pinpoint they don't draw a line or they don't draw. What they draw is a sphere. In this sphere, I could be anywhere. In this 3D space, I could be anywhere. Then they take another sphere, that's
Is
another
it
3D
is
space.
right? Okay, sorry, but I'm just thinking like because you said radio frequency, right? So now the wave has it's really large wave, right? Right. The wavelength is probably like 10 meters or something.
I don't know the exact wavelength. I think it's
Mhm.
in
Is it because of the wavelength that the pinpointing is not possible?
no,
Because
it's a simple mathematics. So let's say I tell you you are 300 meters, 300 kilometers from Trafalgar Square. Okay,
hmm
300 kilometers of Trafalgar Square could be anywhere, right?
hmm
Now I say you are 300 kilometers from Trafalgar Square, but you are 200 kilometers from
hmm
Brighton Beach. So now you
yeah.
know a region. You still don't know a point, you know an intersecting a region. Then you say, I'm 300 kilometers from Trafalgar Square, 200 kilometers from Brighton Beach, and I'm 100 kilometers from Dover Beach. So now that's triangulation, right? You have three different
Yeah.
points. And now you can say which is the intersecting area. And in that
And that would be
intersection,
quite small.
that
That
will
would
be
be
quite
there.
small, right? But in that
hmm
intersecting area, there will be still 2 or 3 points where you could be. Because it's a
Yes.
circle, right? So it will have two dots. So you could be there or there. So
Yeah.
if you draw three circles together and then you see where the where the circles intersect, there will be 2 points of intersection. Okay, so that's the triangulation. But instead of imagining it as a circle or a line, imagine a 3D space. So you have the 3D space with a radius from Brighton, 3D space with a radius from Trafalgar Square, and 3D space with a radius from Dover. And in that 3D space, you are somewhere in that region. Get a fourth satellite, and now you can tell exactly where you are, and you can also tell how high you are, the elevation.
But I mean, how is the height determined? Because this is in a geometric space, you're kind of, with the fourth sort of, if you say tower, you could sort of pinpoint it more, your location.
Exactly, but
But
pinpointed.
how do you
So
know? I mean, that's still
the
tricky.
location is for the device, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the device is at a particular height. Say you are in Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
Giving an example. So from Mount Everest, the signal will take less time, especially from the sky. It will take less time to come to you. So you can decide the horizontal elevation and the vertical elevation, right? Where you are. So based on where you are located, you can
Depending
easily
on
tell
the
the
time
elevation.
is it because of the depending on the time it takes for the signal
Yes,
to travel? All
yes,
right.
yes. That is what
Oh,
is
that's
calculated on
very
the phone.
intricate. That's very intricate. That's really interesting. Yeah.
So it's not just like you're receiving the signal. How much time is that it has taken for you to receive that signal
Mm-hmm.
from that particular satellite? So all that is calculated, and these satellites are sending signals at particular frequencies or range of frequencies. And each system, so we talked about GPS, and there are other satellite constellations provided by other countries in the world, and they use their own system, so they must be using a different frequency, because you don't want to send the same signal at the same frequency. You want to use different frequencies, so you don't jam maybe aircraft transmission. So aircraft is traveling and they are sending the ATC tower, or they're talking to the ATC tower at a particular frequency. You have cell phone frequencies, you have so many other frequencies. So you need to have a bandwidth in which you will send only the GPS signals, and no one else is going to use it for anything else. And then you need to say, my country, my constellation of satellites will send the GPS, the signals only in this frequency, but your satellite, your system will send it in that frequency. So suppose you
Right.
move from one country to another, there are different regulations, right? So you cannot, like, the cell phone frequencies that you use, say in UK, are different from maybe cell phone frequencies that we use in India or US,
Is
right?
that how it is? Because I didn't
I'm
realize.
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
And
I mean, they might have a limitation, like, okay, if you, because that's why you need a SIM card to register yourself on that particular network,
because
right?
before, right now, I remember like I think more than 10 years ago, but there was GSM 900 and then it
GSM
became
900, yeah. So I think it's the same set of frequencies, but you have to use a particular network in order to access those frequencies. So yes, you're right. You're using the same
GSM.
frequencies everywhere, but you have to get authenticated to use that network in that particular
Right.
region.
This is what also confuses me because what you're saying is GPS is only in US. So in Europe we have
No, no, no.
probably a
GPS is
different,
there globally, because Earth is, if you take a circle around the planet Earth, it's not like you're just going above US or anything
but you
like that.
said that that's owned by US, but it
Owned
is
by US.
available everywhere.
Owned by US. What that means is, if you look at Facebook, Facebook is a US company.
Yeah, right,
It's like
okay.
that. Facebook is used globally, but it's a US company. It's registered in the US, right?
Right, okay.
If they have to
Yeah,
operate in Europe, they have to have a separate company, have separate taxation, etc. But essentially, it's a US based company, but it's used by everyone in the world. So GPS is a US based system used by everyone in the world. Okay. The other systems that are there is GLONASS. This is owned by Russia. Global Navigation Satellite System. GLO for global, NAS navigation, SS satellite system. Okay. For Europe, it is called Galileo. Okay.
right.
Then for China, there is Beidou. Spelling is Beidou. Beidou, China. Okay.
It's not the same as Baidu, which is
Baidu,
the
which is the search engine, which is the famous search engine, which is the alternate to Google in China, right? So China has their own constellation. Then you have India. India is called something called as NAVIC, Navigation in Indian Constellation. Navigation Indian Constellation. Okay,
right,
so that's India. And then there is Japan, QZSS, Quasi Zenith Satellite System. QZSS. Okay, so these are the major satellite systems in the world today. Okay, now when you buy a smartphone, if you look at the specs, say you go to a website called GSM Arena and you look at the specs for a particular phone, say iPhone 10 or iPhone, say the recent iPhone 14 Pro, you just look at the specs for that. And if you scroll down, in the bottom you will see navigation systems, and there will be GPS, GLONASS, etc. etc. So basically what it means is it is not just using one singular system to tell you where you are and what's your elevation, how fast you're moving, but it's using multiple satellite systems to tell exactly where you are. And but why is it needed? Can you answer why is it needed? Why are these different satellite systems
So
needed?
instead of triangulating, it's triangulating from further away or by
No,
in.
but GPS system could do everything. Why did Europe or Russia build their own
So if
systems?
I am traveling, then I am also covered, or is it because? But GPS also covers the whole world, right?
Exactly. So, Rina, tell me, why do we need so many systems?
So only other reason I could think of is because if it would give you more accuracy, if if you had.
I think from a don't think technology. Why
Yeah,
would
so that
countries?
was that's yeah. If I kind of zoom out a little bit, international relationships or whatever, I think each country would
Exactly.
want to do it for their own safety
So
and also.
tomorrow, US blocks access of GPS to Russia. How will people navigate in Russia?
That's a good
So
point.
there is a war happening now in Ukraine. Russia has invaded Ukraine, and Western countries have put a lot of sanction. And I'm guessing one of the sanctions would be you're not going to use our GPS satellites.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet, I think, but yeah, it could very
It
well be.
it could, right? It's a part of the warfare. I mean, I don't know how you block it. Like, do you block it when it goes over Russia? How do you do it? I don't know. But it is one way to block access to a navigation system, right?
Hmm.
Of course,
That's
you
very
can also jam a signal. So you're receiving a signal, you can jam that signal from that particular. So you need backups. In
hmm
case GPS fails, the world has no backup. So every country
very.
thought for itself, thought for its own benefit, and they have come up with their own system. So Europe has GLONASS. It doesn't mean that you are using just GPS. You are actually using all the systems which are supported by your smartphone, which you are not aware of, which you will be only aware when you are actually looking at the specs. And that's where I got this idea of let's talk about this topic because many people may not be aware that we are using multiple navigation systems on our
So even
smartphones.
if I am just in one country, I'm still using all of these other.
All these systems.
Right.
If the satellite is going above you, so imagine there are 30 satellites for GPS, and there is maybe 30 satellites for Galileo. And if you're in India, then you have Navik, so it has about 20 or 30 satellites, and they are there. But at any given point in time, you will not have all the satellites over you.
Mm,
So suppose the 30 satellites orbiting around planet Earth from GPS, not all the 30 satellites will be over India when you are there. Maybe one or two, maybe three. But if you want more accuracy, you might use some other systems. So I'll use system from India, I'll use system from Europe, I'll use system from Russia. And with
mm,
with all that information, I can pinpoint exactly where you are, under which tree you are,
mm,
right? So in order to increase the accuracy, the systems, there are so many systems, so just leverage on those things. Okay, so that is the whole constellation, and that is the whole idea why we have why there is why we selected this topic of global navigation satellite system, because there are multiple systems and GPS is the most popular. It's the first, so it has stuck. So now there is a
right.
search engine. We say Google it. Google is not the only search engine. There is Bing, there is Baidu, there is many other search
It's
engines.
that that go.
DuckDuckGo,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's like okay, just Google it.
Hmm.
So it's just like oh, we have GPS, but GPS is just one system of many.
Right. Yeah.
But GPS, what is it used for? I mean, we know position, location, but exactly what are the main things? So one is your position or location, where you are. Other is navigation, point A to point B. So you use Google Maps or you use any mapping software and you want to go from one place to another. So you use navigation. So it looks at where you are located And from there, where do you have to go? And based on that, it tracks your chart. It then tracks whether you're on track or not. If you go
All
outside
right.
the road or you miss a turn, then it will
Uh-huh.
reroute based on the location. So it's tracking, navigation. Then
Yeah, I
tracking.
mean, you start talking about this and then you realize how much calculation is actually going on in all of your mundane tasks that you do every
Exactly.
day. It's just so amazing
That
if
is
you think
amazing,
about it,
right? And it's happening in the
right?
palm of your hand.
Yeah, yeah. And also the expertise required to make all of these happen. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, but the thing is, there's so many smart people are working to make all of these possible, but they all have specific expertise. Not, the person who is like, really expert on GPS system, or maybe doing not, maybe you can't be an expert on the whole GPS. You can only be an expert on the part of it to do one type of calculation from satellite to your phone or whatever. And then all of these different experts collaborating together to make something that is so beneficial to the mass public.
Exactly.
It's just quite interesting to me. Yeah.
I mean, just like the internet, right? It was called the
Hmm.
DARPA net, right? And then it
Yeah.
became internet because it was open to the public. So similarly, this was Navstar. It was open to the public for the benefit of
Yes.
everyone, right? But because the military saw that, okay, this can be actually used for so many other people and so many other benefits. So we talked about location, we talked about navigation. What are the other things we can use it for? Tracking. So if someone gets lost, you can track that person where they are.
Mhm.
Track
Yeah.
track your farm animals where they're going.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, anything that you want to track which needs a higher range than Bluetooth,
Yes,
that's your
location. So you
answer.
can track sheeps, you can track
As
your
long as it's
dogs.
within Earth, right? I mean, but I one of the things I always wonder, right? I mean, I see some YouTube videos where they create like a makeshift balloon to go to space with a camera, and then it drops down after it reaches a certain height, it can't go on anymore because the balloon bursts or whatever. And then it kind of drops down. But by the time it drops down, it's like further away from where it lifted off from. So
Yes.
how does the person find that
So
without,
tracking beacon. So there is a beacon that's
right?
constantly being sent, and you're just tracking that.
And the other thing is, the location in Mars. When we sent the I even forgot the name, the rover or the
Pathfinder,
Pathfinder. Yeah,
Perseverance.
yeah.
So
So
many.
how do we know the location? How are we communicating with them? That's not GPS, of course,
That
but
is not
that's.
GPS. So they have a other navigation system, and I'm pretty sure there is a. So before you send a rover on Mars, you have to first send a satellite that can orbit the planet. So you track the weather, you track the you map the whole thing. So the next step from tracking is mapping.
Mm,
So you have to then start mapping. And how you map is you take the phone and you start moving around with the phone. So then you can figure out, okay, where are the roads? Okay, how much is the height? And you can then create a map just based on altitude and where you are located, which are the roads, which are the rivers, how fast you're moving, if you're on a flight, etc., etc. Right? So
mm-hmm.
that way you can do mapping. So that's another way. And the last is time. You keep track of the time based on the location, based on the where we are in the orbit, right?
Right. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
time is arbitrary, right? Time is arbitrary. I mean, we say that,
Yeah.
okay, time is part of the universe, but it's not. Time is measured against something. What is
Yeah.
that
There is
something?
a reference point.
There is always
Always
a
a
reference point. But which is the original reference point? It's like the question of God. Is there really a God?
reference.
What is the original God? So it's something like that. What is the original reference point? There is no original reference point. Everything is referenced against something.
Yes, yes, that is very interesting to be honest. I mean, I know we're kind of off
Off
topic a bit,
topic, yeah.
but yeah, when you talk about length, yeah, there is a reference point even which against which the meter is defined or
But
centimeter or
but
whatever.
length you can
But
see. Time you can't
yeah,
see.
time that's what really like makes me really excited to think about is because time is the reference point itself is arbitrary. You're just deciding this is what a second is.
Exactly. and that
Yeah.
second is different based on the gravitational force. So theory of
Yeah.
relativity says that the time on Earth and the time on Mars will be different, or the time
Hmm.
at the center of the Earth and the time at top of Mount Everest will be different. Time
Yes.
on an aircraft that is traveling at the speed at very high speed will be different than people who are actually on the ground. Time of the satellite will be different from
And
people on your smartwatch.
absolutely, and people who are frequent flyers would age differently. I mean, it would be a very, decimal point
Yes, exactly,
seconds
exactly.
smaller or higher, but still,
There is a difference. There is a difference.
yeah.
So when the ground stations are controlling all these satellites, even if there is a 1 second out of sync, then the satellite could be like hundreds of kilometers away off orbit. So you have to make sure that they are always constantly in sync with the time so that you can track where they are exactly. Otherwise, you can lose a satellite. So
Yeah, this
it's
is this is actually related to what I was saying in the beginning of our talk, that this is how we kind of proved that Einstein's theory of gravitational theory is more correct than Newton's. Well,
yes.
you can't be more or less correct. It is
I
correct.
think he just added a dimension of gravity. So Newton added the dimension of length and time, and Einstein added the dimension of gravity to the whole equation. So Newton said that everything is absolute. Einstein said everything is relative.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of gravitational force, though, I think basically Newton was saying is two masses are attracted to each other, but Einstein was saying that we are all in this fabric of space-time, and then we bend the space-time, and that's how the attraction calculation is different.
Yes, so the gravity that is actually not gravity, it is the bending of space-time. So it is like you are
Yeah.
going on a piece of paper, but if there is a ball, you start sinking. You start going
Uh-huh.
towards that ball. So
Yes.
similarly, I'm going towards Earth from Sun because I'm closer to Earth. So closer to the
Hmm.
what do you say? The curve that Earth
Yeah.
has created. And if you go towards Sun, it is more. So I fall more quicker the moment I enter Sun's gravity, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But if I have enough
There's
force,
some really good graphics around in
there are some
YouTube.
really good
But,
graphics. But those are
yeah.
all two dimensions. You have to now think about three dimensions because that same thing is applied on top as well. It's not like it's just you're going down. You can go up as well, right? The space is
Yes.
bent around it, not just in one dimension or
Mm,
two
that's
dimensions.
that's very interesting to think about, because for some reason we're all like, I don't know how, I mean, the initial instinct is to just think about things
Visualize,
in
yeah,
2D,
2D.
but we are 3D people. I mean, and we're very much capable of imagining. I think the way we were taught in our education system is to make it easier for us to understand. They probably showed us in 2D and then took us to 3D. But I think we just, got familiar with 2D so much that
Exactly.
whenever we imagine something, and that's probably, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I mean, we have to kind of tell ourselves that, look, we are in a 3D world, and imagine, all the physics around you is happening in 3D.
So if you think of a wormhole, how would a wormhole look like in space, in three-dimensional space? Will it be a hole?
It'd be a tube, right? It'd be.
It could be a tube, but how do you put a tube in space?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't have the answer
So
to it.
yeah, so in Interstellar, the movie, they tackled this concept, right? So
Hmm.
the hole will be a sphere to
Ah,
another dimension. But so just moving on from the what you said is yes, we
mm,
by default we assume everything in two dimension, but we are actually three-dimensional beings. So we need to start imagining in that direction. So how would 3D space when it's bent look like? We
mhm.
can't draw it, right? We can't draw it. We can't create maybe we can create a video out of it. Maybe I'll share a video if there is someone on something on YouTube. But yeah, so that's about gravity. But let's come back to the navigation system, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we have explored the different types of navigation system. We have explored there are three main components. One is the satellite system sending the signal. One is the controls area which controls the satellite to stay in orbit, to maintain it, to make sure that it's everything is correct, and then a receiver which could be your smartphone, which could be a smartwatch, which could be a proper GPS device. And the bigger the sensor, the better the signal accuracy. It's as simple as that. The bigger the sensor of a camera, the better quality the image is. So similarly, if the bigger the sensor, the more information you can capture, and you can exactly tell where you are. Okay, so it's important. But of course, now are there any limitations to the system? Of course, there are limitations, because these systems have been they are there, but they don't know, they can't differentiate between land and ocean, right?
Yes.
So suppose
Okay.
you are navigating and it shows, okay, there is a road going, and now you have to go to an island. So there is a straight line, but it has to go through a bridge. But now it takes you to the river. And there have been cases where actually someone has fallen into a river because the navigation took it there. Then there have been
This is
cases,
in the early stage, though, right? When they
early stages. Yes,
cross-reference.
no, but even now, I mean, yes, systems are getting better, but yes, it has happened. Someone has gone up a mountain and they're not able to go up or down.
Right.
So those things can happen with a navigation system. And even now, I mean, when I try to ride a bicycle, it takes me somewhere like it's totally where there is no road. I can't even ride bicycle there. Of course, you can walk over those areas, but it takes me to those locations where a cycle can't go. So those GPS systems are not that. It will not tell you how the land is. It will just tell you your location. So you need to think about that as well. It has got a limitation. It will not tell
Mhm.
you the geography of the land. It will tell you where you are. If you're in the sea, it will know you're in the sea, but it will not be able to tell that, okay, you are in the sea.
Yes.
It will tell
I
you,
mean,
okay, somewhere in the
I
sea
think
you
the
are.
solution is in your cell phone. It cross-references with previous data that Google mapped already, and it knows what is street and what
Exactly.
is field and what is water and
Exactly.
all. So
Exactly.
that's how it.
So how Google Street View or mapping must have done satellite images and then people moving on that. So then you can figure out which are roads, which are not roads. You can create an algorithm where you can say, okay, these are roads, these are.
That's another interesting part where how Google understands where there is traffic or not. Because I saw another video. I knew it before, but then this guy did a YouTube video where he actually put it in practice. I think it was in Norway or Denmark, some European countries, where he got all of his friends for actual mobile phones in a trolley. Like there's like 50 mobile phones, and then he was walking around in a very quiet road where there is no traffic at all, but at that time, if you check in Google Maps, it was like red, like fully, um, full traffic in that road. Because what Google does is Google doesn't know whether there is traffic or not, whether there's traffic jam, people have to wait. They just know the GPS location of the mobile phones, and if the phones are not moving in a street, then it kind of calculates that as.
Exactly. That's how they know there is a traffic jam, because if there are so
Mhm.
many people going in a particular direction and Google knows that it's a road from the maps, and if people are
Mhm.
not moving and the speed is slow based on the GPS location, then it
Mhm.
can connect everything together and then say you are in a traffic. And that is how
Yeah,
fast the
and
traffic
that
goes.
experiment was so cool. I've thought about doing this myself, but I couldn't gather
So
50
many
active
phones.
phones. Yeah,
You need a big
like
social
I call it.
network.
Yeah,
You can fool the system.
but
There is a
yeah,
traffic.
yeah. I mean, if you just literally get 50 people walking the same direction but very slowly on a street, it will come up as
You can
as.
fool the system. So see, that's the thing. Plus GPS system, because it's a radio signal, it can be jammed. You can block it.
Hmm.
So you
All
can
right.
block. Yeah, you can. It's a signal, right? How do you
Hmm.
block signals? You have some reflectors, or you send some opposite signal, etc., etc. So you can always jam it. And there are documentation like, okay, this signal is being sent at this frequency, so you can monitor those frequencies. I mean, of course, there is no information there. It's just position of a satellite, and what will you do with the position of a satellite from Earth? You can't do much. You can't remote control a satellite from Earth.
Yeah, but I feel like if within our audiences, if we have like an avid telescope person who looks at the stars and things in the sky, they might be quite interested that you could calculate where a satellite is from this
Yes, there is
information,
apps.
and
There are
then
apps for it.
actually point your telescope at it, and then you can see. And I saw a video recently, and where the person was waiting, I think, for a long time to see a satellite against the moon. So, it would, they pointed it to the moon, but a satellite would go past in between, and that was actually a very cool video to watch as well.
I would love to watch that. It would give a nice light trail across the moon. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
So I actually used an app to track the International Space Station, and when I knew that International Space Station was going above me, I actually saw it with my naked eyes because the International Space Station is not very far from us. It's like a few.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
think it's about 400 kilometers. I can't remember exactly, but it's
Hmm.
the closest. It is closer to us
Wow,
than
that
many
that
cities.
sounds like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very close to Everest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can actually see it moving really fast with a very bright light, with naked eyes,
Oh,
no satellite needed. It is one of the few things.
right.
So there are trackers which tell you like, okay, when is ISS passing over you? So yeah, so
Wow.
it's so cool. Like you can do all these things, but imagine with these technologies, a smartphone has made us so dependent on it. Like we cannot travel without our smartphone. We don't know what to do if we go out in the forest. Like how do we navigate ourselves?
Exactly, but more interesting even, I mean, especially more interested now after learning all of this from you today, is that how much calculation is happening in the background, right? I mean, you think, oh, why is my phone slow? But it's just churning away mathematics behind in the background. So, but no, I mean, it still should be fast enough. I'm
So
not.
the thing is, I mean, we should also appreciate the computing power that has happened and
Mm,
in the amount of space as in the physical space. So
mm,
earlier, the computers used to fill up a room. They used to be giant. Okay, they
yeah.
used to fill up a room. Now they sit in the palm of our hand. They are that small, and they can calculate much more than what was calculated maybe in the computer that was sent to the moon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
the computing power has become, what do you say? The computing power has become very a lot.
Hmm.
Computing power of computers has improved quite a lot, and the size of the computers has reduced, or the processor. And because of that, we are able to enable all these technologies. We are
Yeah,
moving further ahead. Now we are going to have a AI processor on our chip someday that is going to just create a random AI or whatever, and that will be the next step. So with so much compute power, you can do so many things.
yeah, absolutely. I am looking forward to what the future holds. Unfortunately, I won't be here forever, but yeah, the next 30, 40 years, hopefully, we'll be seeing the advent of how things change. I mean, the way things are changing now are like in mega speed. I mean, 100 years ago, I think there were innovations, but not at the speed that we're experiencing right now, right? I mean, cell phones have gotten like from a brick to tiny ones, handheld, and
Foldable phones.
can do so much more, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, and all the different things where innovation is happening right now in AI and then in med tech, in ed tech, in all of these different technologies being worked on. I'm quite excited for the future, and hopefully our audience are too. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed our talk about GNSS, which is a parent topic of GPS. Today with us. Please do let us know if you guys have any suggestion or feedback around what we talk about or what we could talk about in future. If any of you guys have a particular expertise or not, just want to reach out to us to talk about anything, do reach out. Our contact details and everything is within the description of whichever platform you're listening to us at. Speaking of platforms, we are available in YouTube and all the major podcast platforms. Please do seek out if you are just randomly come across to us. We talk about any kind of technology related topics, and we'll continue to do that for as long as we can, I suppose. And we welcome any guests in relevant topics that we can.
Yes.
So yeah, hopefully you guys had a bit of awareness, bit of understanding on the technology behind, your day-to-day life today, and we hope to bring you more and more topics in the coming weeks.
Yes, thank you so much, Renat, for ending it on a high. I think sometimes we stop appreciating the marvel that we have in our hands, and we just end up scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, etc. But there is I mean, so much human ingenuity has gone into making that smartphone, which is the culmination of so many years of efforts and innovation that it's unimaginable. But here it is, and it's just good to understand what's happening behind the scenes. So yeah, this is our way of trying to understand it and then bring it to you guys so you can appreciate it even more and maybe you can do something with it. So yeah, thank you so much for listening and see you next time.
Yes, thank you very much, guys.